So we always handle it by the root ball. Sometimes when you get a seedling from a garden center or garden store, it's been sitting in that tray for a long time. And what happens is it becomes what we call root bound. Root bound is when the roots have been sitting there for a long time and then they're like, where's the nutrients? And they start going back inside. They wrap around and they go back inside to find nutrients. That is not the case with these. We timed these exactly for today. We started these 6 to 8 weeks ago, so they'd be ready today. And when you hold one of these and look at it, you can actually see the tips of the roots kind of pointing out in all directions. So what you would need to do for a root-bound seedling is break it open. You do not need to do that with these. These are super tender and they don't need that encouragement. They're happy as they are, so don't break them open. So that's important too. When we plant, I'm going to talk about 2 big temptations that we want to avoid. The first temptation is the tree on the hill. So the tree on the hill is, I'm going to dig a little divot, I'm going to set this in, I'm going to make a little hill. It's got a little tree on top, isn't that cute? And it is. There's 2 big problems with this. One is that is not actually set into the new soil very well. And so the roots might actually just stay in their root ball because I can easily just pull them right out. So it's not really locked in place. The second and bigger problem is when we have a tree on a hill, when we water that or when the rain comes, it's going to hit that and go off to the side. It's not necessarily going to go to the roots, which is where we want it. So we want this plant to get established in a new home, and we want the water to go to the roots. So we're going to do the opposite of a tree on a hill. We're going to dig deeper, about the size of our root ball, so that looks like a crazy deep hole, but I'm going to make this crazy root out. I'm going to dig a nice deep hole where my root ball was, which is right about here, and if you're lost, you can look at the line of root balls too. Oh, okay, it's probably right about here. Then I'm going to kind of hover it in place, backfill it, that in there, backfill it, and then this is the second big temptation, which we want to avoid. Sometimes when we plant things, people want to do this thing where they're doing a Swedish massage on the soil, and we don't want to do that because we want it nice and loose for those roots to find their new home. And if we lean on the bed or step in the bed or pat it down, the roots are going to have a really hard time getting to where they need to go. So we're not going to do that. We can use 4 fingertips, any 4 will do, and just frame out the plant and give it one push. That's it. As soon as you push that down, those roots are coming in contact with the new soil. They're locked in place, and then we're going to smooth this out away from the plant. So now the water's going to go right to the center, which is where we want it. The last thing I'll say is that every plant is different, but all plants have a grow point, which is where the smallest leaves grow out of. Sometimes that's really close to the root ball, and sometimes it's really high up. So when we look at this broccoli, the smallest leaves are growing out right here. That's like 2 inches off the bottom, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But with this Napa cabbage or with this lettuce, we don't want soil getting down into that point. So when we bury these, we want to be really mindful that we're getting it in low, that it's sitting in a divot, that we're pushing it in and smoothing it out, and finally that no soil is getting down in the middle. Because when the soil gets in the middle, it can keep it from growing, and it can get sick. So we just want to make sure that we're not putting soil down in the middle, but we don't have to worry nearly as much with these guys because they're so tall. That's pretty much it. So where the root ball is where we want to dig a nice hole, push it in, smooth it out, make sure that it's sitting in a little divot. There's lots of beds. If you have any questions, you can ask Rachel or I. We're happy to help. And once we get done with these, we'll push into seeds, which is a different story altogether, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Cool?
Sweet. Yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you all.